俺の痛みはお前以上だ!
Smear frames are a thing I've been obsessed with for a while now. In fact, I'd actually collect them, like a nerd from the 90s with Pokemon cards, or a streamer from the nowadays with Pokemon cards. They're just so goofy and weird and sometimes a little scary and what the fuck? Essentially, they're animation's answer to motion blur, a phenomenon where the snapshot of light a camera captures in 1/24th of a second isn't fast enough to get a clear image of a fast-moving object, leading to smudged frames that can be found by pausing at the wrong, or depending on your perspective, right time. It also happens in our eyes, as light lingers on the receptors that take it in for a literal split second. And if you don't believe me, just take your hand, wave them for your face real fast, and you'll see what I mean. Assuming I've understood the science right, which is debatable, it's one of the main things that lets us see motion, since when these images are played back fast enough, this lingering light effect lets them overlap and create an illusion of one continuous movement. And it's what early animators discovered when studying film to learn how things move frame by frame. A lot of early smears directly recreate the semi-transparent look of motion blur by dry brushing colours along an indicated arc of motion. But it wasn't until 1942's The Dover Boys at Pimento University, or just The Dover Boys, that smear frames as we know them became a thing. Produced by Warner Bros. And directed by Chuck Jones, Dover Boys uses a lot of smears to sell its characters' snappy movements, as they zip back and forth across the screen, something Warner Bros. Was not happy with, since at the time, smear frames were seen as a lazy way to save on time and money, and it nearly cost Jones his job had it not been for that whole, World War II thing going on and making it hard to find a replacement, so Chuck Jones would later go on to create some of Warner Bros. Most beloved animated characters. It's honestly weird to look back on, since nowadays, smear frame saving on time and money is exactly why they're so useful. I mean, why waste all that time drawing a dozen frames that need a dozen extra hours to get done when they can be condensed into just 1 or 2 drawings, for results that are just as, if not better than what you'd get otherwise. Especially when, to get the motion right, you might only have those 1 or 2 drawings to use. I mean, unless you're looking for something that's more fluid than snappy. It might look goofy, but it makes a tangible difference. Or put another way, it,
Say the line, Bart!
Smears aren't meant to be seen, they're meant to be felt. Though they started as a way to replicate motion blur, I think they've become their own thing as the years have gone on, which can be seen in the many different ways they can be done. So many in fact that could probably make a whole ass listicle describing them in lackluster detail. Like, before I start I think it's important to clarify this is all coming from someone who isn't an animator, and by no means is this meant to be a comprehensive list, it's just the things I noticed, so, take it with a grain of salt. Stretchy smears. Smears that take the animation principle of squash and stretch to its logical extreme, as if their form is struggling to keep up with how fast they're moving. Break smears. Smears that make something move in ways it just shouldn't, like an arm bending the wrong way or a head doing a full 180 to heighten the snap of a movement. Repeating or duplicate smears. Smears that use repeated or duplicate drawings of something along their motion path, like an afterimage, as if it's moving so fast it's taking your brain a second to process it. Shape smears. Smears that, like duplicates, create an afterimage effect, but with abstract shapes of colour and line are meant to represent various parts of something in motion instead of redrawing the thing itself. Trail smears. Smears that leave a trail of colour or light or line art to indicate movement, creating a clear arc of motion along the part that's moving fastest. Speedline smears. Smears that use speed lines, mainly through parallel lines along the edge of something, to indicate their speed. As if they're moving so fast their line art and colours are starting to rip away from their body. Jagged or anime smears. Smears that use jagged shapes along the edge of something to indicate its speed. Something that, from what I've seen, seems to be a staple of smear frames in anime generally, and that's weirdly hard to find in Western animation outside of shows with the heavy anime influence. Disappearing smears. Smears where parts of something that are moving start to, disappear. As if they're moving so fast your brain doesn't have enough time to process it at all. Blurred smears. Smears that add motion blur. Something I have mixed feelings about. I mean, I feel like the whole point of smear frames is that you get a clean image out of it, but I'd be lying if I said a touch of blur didn't add to it sometimes. There's so many ways to make a smear click, and it's rare to find one that relies solely on one technique, as they often mix and match these tricks to get more specific results. and a lot of animations get really weird with how they use them, with one of my favourite examples of this being BNA, Brand New Animal. As on par as it is with Studio Trigger's animation generally, there's an extra level of creativity given to its smears that I think adds a lot to the series' visual flair. Like this one, where Michiru's step back is so fast her face takes a second to catch up, and shows the slow progress of her reaction with it, from shock and horror to timid excuse making to anxiously waiting to see if any of them worked. Or these frames where, as she frantically looks around, her hands reach out and pull her head back into position, as if it's moving so fast she needs to stop it from popping off entirely. Even these baseball throw smears manage to sell the off-the-chain chaos of this character in just a few frames. I never thought I'd be so fucking scared of a cartoon rabbi in my entire life, but here we are. Also, whoever titled this clip online deserves a fucking raise. BNA smear frames almost tell a story, and it's a big part of what adds to the charm of its animations for me, and I think is a great example of just how playful you can get with a smear frame. I mean, it's only gonna be there for a split second, why not see how far you can push it? But this is all in the context of 2D animation, which might make you wonder, why am I talking about any 3D smear frames? They are used in a lot of places, especially recently, as a lot of 3D productions seem to be moving toward more stylized aesthetics, with the most obvious example of this I think being Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Let me just cross that off the bingo card. One of the first things its team did was eliminate motion blur altogether, to make every frame of the film a clearer image to add to the illustrative style they were aiming for, and use a lot of classic 2D animation tricks to compensate, including a lot of smear frame techniques, duplicates, abstract shapes, trails, speed lines, jagged smears, and even this after image effect that, as a weird side note, actually had a big impact on the way I do things for videos, cause I've always thought After Effects motion blur just looks fucking ugly, so I took some notes from Spider-Verse by just duplicating the thing and lowering the opacity. While it is more work, I think it's clear to see how much can be gained from using smear frames in 3D, cause it adds so much style and personality to even the simplest of animations that you might not see, but you'll definitely feel. But at the same time, I do think it's fun to look at smear frames on their own. There's something about the way they bend and break the world to imply speed, seeing how they give a clear sense of direction to all that volume and weight. The borderline impressionistic streaks of colour and light they make that I can't help but be drawn to. If I could remember anything from my art history classes in secondary, I might even argue there's something Picasso-esque about the way they abstract reality into barely recognisable shapes, or how there's a Dalian quality to the surreal imagery they use to do so. Am I using these words right? I think the best way to show what I mean, weirdly, isn't by looking at smear frames in animation, but by looking at their equivalent in comics and manga. Many of the techniques used in animation to show speed were originally taken from illustration, and yet they both feel so distinct. A big part of this, I think, comes down to the difference in approach to both mediums, since while both require an artist to draw the same thing over and over again, what an animator achieves over the course of several or even dozens of frames, a comic artist or mangaka has to achieve in just 1 or 2 panels, giving them more time to render its details. I think some of the best examples of these come from Vagabond, especially this panel, whose simple imagery and clear flow of action is only heightened by the subtle use of speed lines and faded duplicates. It portrays its character's simple attacks in these life or death battles with such delicacy and clarity through these impressionistic renderings of motion that even I, as someone who hasn't even read Vagabond yet, can immediately tell what's up without needing any more context. Cause you see, I'm not your typical manga reader. I'm your average out-of-context manga panel enjoyer. Man, I need to go outside.
This is the 4th surge in infections that we have experienced as a country.
Oh, right. I've probably gone off the pretentious deep end here, but I think there is an argument to be made for smear frames and smear panels as their own art form. One built around capturing not just motion or impact, but speed and momentum in a still image. And as weird as it sounds, it's something that inspires me. Over the last few years, I've been making a genuine effort to develop my artistic skills as best I can, and with it's come a stronger appreciation for the time and thought that goes into the simplest of drawings and sketches. Like, Christ, do you know how fucking hard it is to draw a face that looks right? Very. The answer is very. And so, when I see these smear frames and smear panels that don't just draw a character with anatomy that looks right, but with velocity and momentum that looks right, with impacts and reactions that look right, where even the way their body bends and breaks in all the wrong ways because of how fast they're moving looks right, it's mind-blowing. It goes well beyond the simple feat of capturing the world as it is in the moment, but as it is always. A world that lives and breathes and goes on, and how every artist who's hit this level of skill can do so in such unique ways that are so personal to how it moves in their own life. To be able to capture the way you don't just see the world, but feel the way the world moves with such intense clarity, it's the kind of thing I strive for artistically, and is what makes me appreciate the skill and dedication behind the work of the artists behind these images so much, even if the results can be quite goofy. What I think makes smear frames so amazing, and what makes me so borderline obsessed with them, is how, whether seen as an art form or a trick of the trade, they show that the best way to make something feel natural is to push it beyond what's actually possible. And yeah, those are my thoughts. Sorry if my voice sounds a bit weird, I've been dealing with a cold for the last week or so. I feel like it's mostly gone from my sinuses, it's mostly just like a lot of phlegm in my chest, but I feel like you can still kind of hear it, you know? Anyway, bit of a weird one, and it was strangely difficult to research since most of the info I found on smear frames was focused on how to make one, but I've had it on the back burner for a while now and thought it'd be good to do as I try to change up my approach to making videos. I'll talk about it in more detail in an update video later, but to put it simply, I wanted to give myself more time to really nail things down, writing and editing wise, especially in terms of making assets to fuck around with for editing, and try and represent the way I actually think and talk about things better, which tends to be very chaotic and scattered. Since I feel like I've always had this problem of streamlining my videos into what's expected of a video essay instead of what I actually think would be good or even just fun to make. I mean, I guess that's just life in general, but still. Anyway, hope you're staying safe, keeping your distance, wearing a mask, washing your hands, getting vaccinated if you can, and let me know what you think. If you agree, disagree, if there's any smear frames you're particularly fond of, how you feel about the vibe of this video, etc. And thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed this and want to see more, then check out my last video, where I talk about what I love about the 2019 animated short film For the Girl from the Other Side. Or watch me ramble about my favourite stuff from summer 2021. And don't forget to like, comment, share, and of course, subscribe to come fly with me. Hit the bell to stay notified, follow me on Twitter for more updates, ramblings, poor attempts of humour, follow me on Instagram for semi-regular art stuff, and hopefully, I'll see you later.